block and delete. Vote for Kamala Harris on November 5th to keep bad people from doing bad things. Plus, what I learned being banned by TikTok last year and what I learned from TikTok politics debaters today. If Kamala Harris wins, that makes Joe Biden an American hero. This statement is not about patriotism. This is about people in general and what they do and do not do for the benefit of their fellow man. I really didn't want to write about politics today. Writing is supposed to be fun, and although I find this topic tiresome leading up to Election Day, I am determined to get some pleasure out of it. After 2 years of consistent daily content creation, I have learned the hard way about managing social media comment sections. Monitoring for the most insane replies to what I thought were pointed but ultimately innocuous TikToks is part of the gig that I did not expect. Things were not like this in the relatively safe space of Facebook, populated with professional colleagues. Because I port my TikTok content over to other platforms, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, etc., I started to see how the same videos would draw different types of reactions from various social media audiences. I was forced to develop a method, through trial and error, of dealing with this exciting but sometimes debilitating response to me and my increasingly raw public persona. I am coming up on the 1-year anniversary of being banned for life, unless I start a second account, from going live on TikTok. I started going live on the app as soon as I had enough followers and used the opportunity to kill time on the treadmill twice a day. It was a lark, and it worked well for me until it didn't. I made friends, followers, and fans during those months, but I also attracted the internet's worst trolls. I had never been confronted so directly with so much anger and hate before. Much of the harassment came from Donald Trump supporters, who seemed to be the most populous segment of internet trolls over the last almost decade. Maybe there's also a cadre of Democrats who go about this same behavior. I am only speaking about my trolls. The normalization of this dehumanizing behavior coincides with Donald Trump's presence in politics, but it also arrives ready-made for anyone who wants permission to hide behind a screen and neatly package their racism, sexism, and homophobia in one convenient afternoon attack. I use the word attack because I dig alliteration. I never actually felt attacked, as much as I felt provoked. For the portion of these trolls who are actually human, I have allowed myself to believe that a significant percentage are bots, because I want to feel like I live in a world with humans who would not say some of these things. It isn't enough to vomit the venom. They want to see how the poison makes the victim react. I was sad when I was banned from going live on TikTok, but I was also relieved to stop feeling like I had to put myself into the line of fire just because the firing squad showed up. You see, I learned to deal with bullies early in life. I was a little smartass who did not accept my parents' poor excuse for parenting. I parented myself. I did not get physical with my tormentors. I didn't need to. I made bullies believe that I was crazy. A weird eye roll, a strange face twitch, and an increasingly quieting monotone voice will scare just about anybody. This side of me came out to my foes, and is what my fans loved, when I would live stream because I could not ignore the chance to strike back at anyone who justified my wrath by striking at me first. These guests on my show invited me to go loco, which I loved. I found myself unmatched when it came to undermining the confidence of anyone who stepped to me, and I enjoyed making them question their sanity and their manhood. But these exchanges also ruined my day a few times. They got dark, and one day, as it happens quite often on TikTok, a user or group of users reported my live stream and got me banned. In fact, right before it happened, one of them left a comment on one of my videos saying, "Have fun being banned." The appeals I made to TikTok went unanswered, and I accepted it. I am grateful that this happened. In thinking it over, I realized that TikTok expects users to rise above this kind of trolling and not strike back. The app provides the tools to mute and block nuisances, and they expect those tools to be used. I suppose TikTok did not think of people like me, who are happy and satisfied as artistic creators, but who will also apply their creativity to psychological warfare. I used to fight back in comment sections too, although my awareness that the internet is forever made me more guarded. Still, I didn't like the way it felt to waste time responding, and eventually I landed on my now standard methodology. I block and delete immediately. As soon as I recognize the discourse as disrespectful, which is putting it mildly in most cases, we're donezo. This is progress for me, and is not unexpected progress. I have been working on my behavioral issues in therapy for 7 years. I don't want to be an angry guy, but I am an angry guy for reasons that will always be a part of my life. We all live one life, and the bad parts of our lives are still our parts. Blocking and deleting is such a useful way to excise negativity out of existence as we actualize our best selves. Unfortunately, it isn't possible to block and delete the political climate that we live in 2 weeks from the most consequential presidential election of my lifetime. On November 5th, 2024, it is possible, however, to block and delete the pervasive pandemonium of the politicians themselves. Like my troll commenters, they won't actually go away, but their influence and ability to affect our lives can be neutralized. You may have noticed that I did not mention Twitter in my social media story above. This is because I no longer post on Twitter. When Elon Musk forced the hastily undesigned X logo, which looks like it might be for a website showcasing snuff films, onto my phone, I permanently retreated. Uninstall, baby. Block and delete. Elon Musk, Donald Trump, and other less famous fearmongers, which the casual observer of the political landscape might not be aware of, are, in fact, very aware of you. These damaged people seek to assess who is and who is not on their side, and then encourage and utilize their base of support to nefarious political ends. This is nothing new, of course. All recorded time contains these characters, but you and I are living with the current threat to what will become someone else's history someday. When I feel like I am overreacting, I remind myself that we have precedent throughout the world of dictators, authoritarians, and despots who, instead of seeking therapy to drill down on their daddy issues, seek to control our freedoms. Dude, and it's always a dude, 45 minutes per week on a couch talking to a therapist is actually a viable option. Sometimes I wish I weren't as schooled about the dedicated malice that the most vocal of Donald Trump supporters want to inflict upon their neighbors. Some will say they are just voting in their best interest, insisting that it is policy and policy only that motivates their support. To me, any vote for a pernicious person is a vote against humanity's prosperity. Do you know the song Sleeping with the Television On by Billy Joel? I don't sleep with the television on, but the song is still about me, because I rarely go too long without needing some chatter going on in the background while I sleep. I do choose silence sometimes when I want to let my mind have control of my dreams, but I prefer to refrain from too much exposure to my unconscious. For a while, I would play reruns of The Howard Stern Show. Then I got really into the scam baiter Kit Boga. And more recently, I have been tuning into the late-night political debate live streams of a group of various 20-somethings on TikTok. Debating is an exploding niche on TikTok, and the best at it are incredibly informed, intelligent, highly skilled at debate, and getting better every day. While the most popular members of this debate clique are young white guys, there are others spanning gender, sexual orientation, age, and ethnicity. One of them is a black man named Jaden, who has a voice that could read the phone book and does an excellent Donald Trump impersonation. He often guests on other live streams to lend a black perspective to the conversation. Debaters are good about not speaking for communities that they are not a part of, and instead bringing in other debaters who are. Somehow, it is reassuring that the debate side of TikTok attracts the same debasing commentary from Donald Trump trolls regardless of the debater's stripe. These guests may tweak their insults, but their small minds tend to go for the typical put-downs and slurs. When a discussion with a minority debater goes well, it adds a personal wrinkle to the conversation that sometimes enlightens the guest. The difference from the experience I encountered in my live streaming days is that instead of trying to inoculate these diseases in the real time of scrolling comments, debaters are engaging in live discussion with these terms of service taunting people. As moderators of their platform, political debaters can mute the guest's microphone or kick them from the stream entirely, a la block and delete. But this is seen as running away from the conversation or conceding the argument. Typically, trolls, which seem to comprise a majority of guests, are tolerated until they devolve into language that could get the host's live stream banned. Usually, TikTok's moderation flags the guests and removes them before the host is even able to do so. Donald Trump supporters who are confronted with irrefutable facts by someone with double the IQ and half the age usually erupt in anger, so most debaters have several accounts in various stages of ban. When a user's live stream gets taken down, they will usually pop up on another moments later. Parker is a very popular 22-year-old debater from Iowa who grew up in a Christian household and was a Donald Trump supporter in his teens before educating himself, earning an economics degree, and moving to Los Angeles. He has nearly 1 million followers on TikTok, and his daily 6-hour live streams often draw up to 10,000 viewers at a time. Yesterday, while listening, I made a few quick notes of some exchanges Parker had over the course of an hour with Donald Trump supporters. Multiple guests intentionally mispronounce Kamala Harris's name, even when corrected, with some going as far as to call her Kamala, to which Parker immediately kicks them. A guest asks, "Why are you okay with children cutting off their dicks or adding them?" When pressed by Parker, the guest then hypocritically agrees that circumcision is fine because it's religious. Several men in their late 40s, one with the username RealDealMAGA, tend to be extremely homophobic and extremely angry. A male guest, who is clearly at least twice Parker's age, comes up using Parker's profile photo on his account and then proceeds to angrily project homophobia. Parker is not rattled and asks the guest, "Are you okay? Are you going through something?" When the guest runs away after not getting a reaction, Parker moves on to the next, saying, "What a weirdo." Fans donate money to support Parker and receive shout-outs throughout the live stream. The money really starts to flow when a guest accuses Parker of not having a real job, which always makes the guest angry, especially when Parker asks them to define job. Parker and other debaters on my side of TikTok are all supporting Kamala Harris for president. They provide a small but essential piece of an overall effort to block and delete the forces led by the former president of the United States, who recently referred to liberals in America as the enemy within, propagandistic language straight out of Holocaust Germany. Again, I really didn't want to write about politics today. I am the enemy within. That's me. I'm one of the people who doesn't support Donald Trump, and according to him and his cult, I am the enemy within. Frankly, I don't even like calling him former president of the United States. I mean, I like the former part. But even using the words President of the United States is giving too much respect to a person who does not respect me. Block and delete! If we re-elect Donald Trump, we agree to obliterate what we know this country to be, an imperfect nation that strives to be better, to learn from mistakes, and continue to reject its darkest impulses and forces because we find them abhorrent and counter to lifting up the disadvantaged among us. If we re-elect Donald Trump, then we deserve what we get. America will then affirm itself as a country that was founded in the darkness of genocide and slavery and is going to die in the shadow of that darkness. We vote against who we want to be and uphold what we never were. Kamala Harris is not perfect. Kamala Harris is an extremely accomplished human being who displays compassion, empathy, and kindness. She is a person that, by electing her, we proclaim that we deserve to have a president who actually wants to leave this life having done good things for people. Someone who actually gives a shit about someone other than herself, because doing so gives her life purpose. Someone who wants to help, serve, and protect people. Not Republican, not Democrat, not independent people. People. If Kamala Harris is elected, Joe Biden will rightfully be held up as an American hero, a man who ran to keep Donald Trump's dark forces out of the White House, and a man who then did not run to keep Donald Trump's dark forces out of the White House. The moment I saw Joe Biden walk on stage at the first presidential debate, I knew that he would not be up for the pressure of campaigning, and the pressure of prosecuting Donald Trump required this season. As soon as he said hello, I knew. This was especially jarring considering how hard he rocked the State of the Union just a few months before. However, I never questioned Joe Biden's overall mental acuity or decision-making abilities. I still watch him give speeches and interact with reporters often. I also never questioned the man's dedication to country. Stepping up to do the right thing at the right time for the right reason for the love of country is what patriotism actually is. I realize that Donald Trump and his supporters might believe that they are actually doing that very thing, but they are not from my point of view. To be fair, I also watched Donald Trump's hour-long conversation at the Economic Club of Chicago last week. If Donald has any wheelhouse, economics is probably it. He seemed much more coherent than he ever does at his rallies, but his explanation of how he plans to impose across-the-board tariffs on imports, denounced by most economists, only exemplified his grievance-based behavior. He seemed to be more interested in enacting his ideas than if the ideas had any merit, as he bellowed on about calling this leader and that leader and forcing them to bend to his will. Bullying is not diplomacy. Block and delete. I believe Donald Trump couldn't care less about winning the presidency, other than winning the ability to use the office to bring money into his personal organization, wield power against his personal enemies, and keep himself personally out of prison. I would respect the man more if he would be honest about it. If he wins, he will not even pretend to do the job this time, and with only his educated but nefarious flunkies to populate his administration, he will dole out the most consequential positions in our government to those who seek to make America their personal safe space, where no one exists who is not like them, and there is never a reason to look inward and question themselves. Not only will people like this never visit a therapist's couch, they will seek to malign and marginalize those who do. People such as these, let's use Donald Trump's running mate, J.D. Vance, an ideological shapeshifter who once called Donald America's Hitler as an example, are willing to bend to whatever reality will keep them feeling milky and toasty warm. The response across the internet to rants like mine above falls into the same universe I described about Parker's live stream or in the comments section of my TikTok videos. A series I have been posting, called Good Morning Donald, has kept me busy blocking and deleting recently. No matter what the argument from Donald Trump's cult, truly, the only word in existence to explain the inexplicable devotion to defending the behavior of a man that they don't even know, I always meet the nastiness with my simple and undeniable reality. I don't like the man. I judge a person by the character they display, and I can because I include myself. I am grateful for having been banned by TikTok, because going live brought out something in my behavior that I did not like, and Donald Trump brings out something in the behavior of my fellow Americans that I do not like. Donald Trump has given permission to his followers to speak to Parker the way they do, to speak to me the way they do, to speak about the future of our country and its people the way they do. We are now the enemy within. Donald Trump has normalized this behavior to such a degree that it has infected the already questionable mainstream media. Questionable in that while its journalists may believe that they are seeking to report without fear or favor, they are just as susceptible as anyone to what journalist Aaron Rupar has coined sane washing, i.e., normalizing authoritarian, dictatorial, fascistic behavior by not calling it out. I recently canceled my decades-long subscription to the New York Times for this reason. Another journalist that I respect, Tim Miller, a former Republican never-Trumper, who recently took over hosting the Bulwark podcast, the flagship show of the Bulwark, an original never-Trump organization of former Republicans seeking to keep Donald Trump out of the White House, caught some shade from me last week over a tangential type of sane washing. I sent Tim the following note. Hi, Tim. I just finished listening to your show closing commentary on today's episode of the Bulwark podcast about your banter from last week with Caitlin Collins from CNN, about how she is sad that the election is about to be over and how you might find reporting on Kamala boring, but that Caitlin will still find it fun. I am paraphrasing, but I feel like I am summing up the back and forth well enough insofar as you felt the need to break the fourth wall about it. I was kind of grossed out that day when I heard it. Look, man, your explanation sounded very explainy, and I couldn't believe how long you were going on to justify the nature of the conversation as pre-show getting to know you chit-chat. I totally get what you were saying about how and why it happened, But I was not surprised that other listeners pointed it out, because it came off as glib and out of touch. I am a fan, and I only continued listening to the show after Charlie Sykes left because you became the host. The fact of the matter is that you, Caitlin, and many other mainstream journalists have achieved a certain level of wealth, fame, and status because of the bottomless pit that is reporting on Donald. Donald is an insane, unethical, and immoral habitual liar that you profit off of. That fact does throw a little kernel of doubt into trusting your reporting. So when candid moments like the one with Caitlin happen, it is unsettling. I am not saying anything that you don't know, but I feel it is good to hear it from a sincere source. My breakfast is getting cold. Thank you for your efforts. If you, or more likely, someone you love who is putting party over country, are still thinking about voting for Donald Trump, feel free to forward them the link in this article compiled by Mark Jacob, former editor of the Chicago Tribune, of 200 Reasons Not to. I really didn't want to write about politics today. Vote Harris Walz on November 5th.